When I head out on an Appalachian Trail section hike, I don't always know if there will be a story to tell. We ended the season last year at the James River. I knew the first section below the James River had recently experienced a forest fire, and that would be an interesting story to tell. So I planned to create a standalone video for day one, that 10-mile section.
This means it's cold.
But these next 3 days of hiking were a disjointed context for creating a story. We would hike from Petite's Gap to Cornelius Creek Shelter. Scratch that. We decided to push on to Bryant Shelter, making day 2 a 15-mile day. That would leave us with a short 4-mile hike to the car on day 3. And here's where it gets complicated. At that point, we would do some car shuffling and the boys would head home, while the ladies headed to Crabtree Falls to close a 20-mile gap on our AT journey. We would hike at least another 6 miles to a shelter, but would hope to have enough daylight to push a bit farther, leaving a 13 or 14-mile day on day 4 to close out our trip.
Monday morning, 3 miles in, 1570 climb.
The new ingredient to my hiking was a diagnosis of hypertension in January. The new medication could cause dizziness, and I was restricting my salt intake. But more alarming was the near elimination of caffeine from my diet. I had asked my cardiologist about taking electrolytes while backpacking and pushing myself physically. She kind of gave me that scolding look and told me to drink water. It was the best way to hydrate. I mean, was there a bias about how hard a 60-year-old woman could be pushing herself? Or just a lack of understanding of what it takes to do one of these hikes? I needed some hard data. So you see where this is headed. My pack was around 25 pounds with water and food. I knew these were aggressive miles we had ahead of us so early in the season, but we hike regularly and add weight for some of our longer hikes. It would be challenging, but not outrageous. I tend to fall behind the pack when I get involved in taking videos. Sometimes I trail run to catch up, if it's level and there's no rocks, and sometimes I jump ahead to look for good shots. As the day went on, I could tell I was having difficulty catching up. I was feeling every foot of elevation, and I attributed this to my fitness and the aggressive miles. But the views. Oh, I would be re-energized by the views. Level ground lifted my spirits.
Yeah, apples.
But then the next climb would come, and I could feel the pain, the drain, the lack of power in my body.
Something, it's a broken piece of light. Half-remembered conversation keeps me up at night. When everything needs fixing and you don't even know where to start, with a heaping happen of a full-on portion of a broken heart, I'm gonna get myself together with sticks and paper and glue. I'm gonna get myself together. I'm gonna prove myself to you. Staring into the coffee. What's that you say? Creeping realization on my chest.
Is this our water source for the shelter? Huh?
Just slip away. I'm gonna get myself together. I got sticks and paper and glue. I'm gonna get myself together. I'm gonna prove it's a whoa, whoa, whoa. There is no time. It's a whoa, whoa, whoa. There is no time.
That is a sight for sore muscles.
I'm gonna get myself together.
When I got to the shelter, I took off my pack and collapsed on the porch with my feet elevated. Daylight was going fast. It would be camp chores and then off to bed. Of course, I'm the last one out of camp. I didn't want to head out without some calories in me, so I made my oatmeal and allowed myself some coffee with carnation. The problem was that it was taking forever to catch up. I was already feeling drained, but I could hear them at the top of the hill. Finally, I would catch them. But just as I arrived, Lotus Jewel was putting on her pack to head out. The men had already left. But I needed to take a break, and I took it. I realized the guys were motivated to get home, and I understood that LJ knew how much more we had to hike later in the day. I understood that they would be waiting for me, and I also knew I had the keys to the car. Even at 60, I consider myself an athlete, at least in attitude. I would push on. But how can you not stop to take in these views? Crabtree Falls starts with an uphill hike from the parking lot to the trail. Doesn't even count as 18 miles. Half a mile in and I'm already spent. Too tired to notice much. We press on with some urgency to set up camp before nightfall. The temperature was dropping quickly. I had made a dehydrated meal for dinner, which tends to be higher in salt. I figured that would help replenish me, but I didn't have a whole lot else that had salt content. I didn't add enough water to my oatmeal. Oh well. Again, I'm last out of camp and in catch-up mode. Finally, a good night's sleep. Not perfect, but a good night's sleep. Grateful. And the first mile, pretty level. Thank you. And shortly after that statement, my body was hurting. I was stopping to rest frequently on every ascent. I tried to get LJ's attention by yelling, even blowing my whistle, just to let her know I was going to be moving slowly. But she didn't hear me. I felt dizzy every time I stopped. I thought she might be at the top of this mountain, but she had moved on, motivated by the threat of showers later in the day. This is where I ran into Fortune, a credentialed thru-hiker and YouTuber. I was interrupting his solitude, I knew, but I was happy to see a human. On this last climb, I had become anxious and my throat was closing up on me, making it hard to breathe. I knew this was all in my head, and I could control it as much as you can control any emotion. I just had to let myself feel, and then let that feeling go. As Fortune observed, you can't try to keep up with another hiker. You'll only hurt yourself. I started to relax. I had a few pretzels with salt. I collected my things and stood up, and I thought to myself, once again, I have the keys to the car. I feel much better after grabbing a snack and some water at the top with a view. What a rock wall here. Eventually, LJ got to wondering what was up, and she waited for me. She gave me one of her electrolyte tablets and kept a close eye on me the rest of the way. Yeah, I will. There's mountains appearing. Oh my gosh. New Hampshire doesn't have like the grassy bolts. It's rocks, but you can look out like the scene like that. Scenery of the mountains is handed the car keys to LJ. Salty snacks and a taste of caffeine gave me a bit of boost as we headed home. That night, when I was finally able to take my blood pressure, it read 91/56. I had my data.